Hey everyone, welcome to the Customer Success webinar series. I'm Scott Slomba, Head of Customer Success, and with me today is Jeremy Esty, our Product Manager. We're back. For those of you who are not familiar, we had a series last fall. We did about 6 sessions. We took a hiatus over the winter, and the feedback were that these sessions were pretty helpful. So here we are with another set of webinars. For those of you new, basically this webinar series is geared toward existing customers. And the focus here is to tell you guys what's new in the product, some new use cases you might not be aware of, and just general best practices and whatnot. It's not a sales pitch, it's not a marketing pitch. It's all about how to make best use of the product. So how to get the most out of your license. And then today we're going to talk about. Well, we haven't done an overview of the major features over the last 2 quarters. So Jeremy's going to walk through, what the major features that came out in Q1 and Q2. And then we're going to put a little focus on reports. We put a lot of efforts there in the last quarter or so. So he's going to walk through some demos and some of the new reports. And then, as usual, we'll save some time for talking about upcoming webinars and try and answer as many questions as we can with the time we have allotted. Before I turn over to Jeremy, had a few logistics. Hopefully you figured out how to make this full screen so you get a better viewing experience. However, we do encourage you to ask questions. We want to keep this interactive, informal. To ask questions, you won't be able to ask audibly. You'll have to get out of full screen mode and go to the ask a question chat window. And then speaking of questions, one question I always get is, will this session be recorded? And the answer is yes. We record all the sessions, and here's the URL down the bottom here. This last bullet is where we post them all. You can also get to them through the Freshdesk support channel. If you go to the home page for the knowledge base, you can navigate there as well. All right, so with that, I will turn it over to Jeremy.
All right, good morning, everybody. So I'll go quickly through what we've recently done in Q4 of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023. One of the big things we did the end of last year was hypertransfer for WAN migrations. We're seeing more and more customers migrating to the cloud, which means they're going over fairly high latency networks. And especially with the chatty protocol like SMB, which has many back and forth transactions, it was taking a very, very long time. So with hypertransfer, we found a way around that essentially by packaging all of these calls into all together into one to make it as efficient as possible. We got about 25x improvement, that depending on the size of the files, and so we're essentially seeing customers who are looking at using an Azure Box or a Snowball who are now suddenly able to migrate extremely fast over the WAN. So that's something we built in Q4 of last year and built in the UI to make it much more easy to configure. Q1. We've also improved migration settings. We now have a lot of configurable options per migration that can be set on the UI, so that you have a lot of precision into how you run your migrations. Add a lot of transparency into bulk recall, and a lot of deep analytics UI improvements, building onto the batch filters that we introduced earlier. And this year, in addition, we have new reports. I'll show a few of those. Earlier, we had query summary and orphan data PDF in 4.8.3. We now have in 4.9 the showback report. Improved deep analytics tagging API for faster batch tagging, and share-based access control for AD groups. That's something that's been really big for a lot of customers. Is I need to let the end users or the line of business IT go into their data, and I can't let them access everything. So there's a lot of use cases that are enabled from share-based access. And most recently, we've added that for Active Directory groups. So you can assign an AD group to a specific, to a deep analytics role over a specific set of shares, and the entire group will inherit that access. So you don't have to assign individually to each user. Just a reminder, cloud data management for managing cloud object storage is part of the same license. So it's already available for all of you. And we, it's something that's been really trending lately. A lot of customers, as the cloud becomes more and more important, a lot of customers are using that. So we want to remind you that that is currently available for you with your existing license. And as always, you can, if there's any questions, feel free to add them into the chat. For now, we're going to focus on reporting because that's one of the big things we've been working on lately. The reason is we're seeing a lot of customers with the same business questions that they're using Komprise to answer, but usually that means taking some screenshots here, grabbing some data there, and they still have to do a lot of work in distributing that information to stakeholders in a way that they'll be able to digest. So we're doing that for you now. We have nice PDFs that you can easily distribute, and it's supposed to take the burden off of the IT people. So you guys, by providing these commonly asked for reports out of the box, so you don't have to generate them yourself. And I'll show you a little bit of our new reports. Let me share my screen. All right, so here I have my Komprise application. I log in, I go to plan. I notice I have this new reports tab, and I go here. Note that here I have one report show back. We also have 2 new reports as of 4.8.3, which was the previous release. And those are the query summary report and the orphan data report. The showback report is the first one that we're putting in this new reports tab, but we will be adding many others into this tab as throughout the next several releases. So the showback report is solves one of the use cases that we hear most often from customers. I have a department, business unit, region, etc., that needs a breakdown of their own storage. They need to know how much storage are they using, what are they paying, or what are we paying for them for that storage, what are they saving with Komprise, and potentially what can they save with Komprise. So here we have the configuration page. I can filter by share for this report. So I can select the set of shares that pertain to this particular department. Say I'm an IT person and our engineering department needs to understand what their storage footprint is. I can select whatever shares are specific to this department and go ahead and run this report. I'll call this engineering showback report. And I will select include cost model insights so that the cost model I have configured in plan can be used to tell me how much I'm paying for my storage, both move data and data that's still on its original source. And we have a cold data setting in this report currently it's defined as the 3 coldest tiers in system settings. In the future, you'll be able to configure that as well. I'll go ahead and download my report. So in the basic case where I haven't tiered any data yet, I have my summary of report telling me what it's going to show, current data footprint with storage costs, savings opportunities, breakdowns by shares, users, and file types. I have my total amount of data pertaining to this department or group of shares, the cost before tiering. If I've already tiered, it'll tell me what I've tiered, and the cost after tiering, so I can understand my savings. And I'll have my blue bars appearing here. But in this case, this is a department that has not yet made use of Komprise and doesn't really understand what potential for saving they have. So we're actually telling them this is your cold data not tiered, and this is your potential savings if you were to tier this data. Note that they may already be tiering, but potentially they could be more aggressive. So then we show the difference. You're already you're tiering this much, but you can save a lot more. And we summarize this in text so that it's much easier for stakeholders to understand out of the box. And we also give you recommendations. So based on your cost model, tiering can save you this much money. If it is already saving you, we tell you that as well. And we give you some recommendations. We also tell you what shares are near capacity so that you can tier and increase available capacity. And then we give you a breakdown of your top shares by capacity used, then top shares by cold data. This dark blue here is cold, and that's what this list is sorted by. And then lastly, your top users by storage used. So it's sorted by the total. So you know who are the worst offenders, who you might need to talk to, or set more granular or more aggressive tiering policies. And here's your top file type, so you understand what data is actually taking up most of your space. And as usual, if you have already tiered, you will also see that underneath the same way you do in deep analytics. And then you have an appendix and a breakdown of your shares in the query. So this is something we've had asked for a lot. So it's one of our big things in 4.9, which is now officially released. So if this interests you, you can upgrade as soon as we can get a support person to set that up. Scott, are there any questions from the audience so far? I don't hear any, so I'll keep going to a couple other. Am I audible?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not audible. I was on mute. We do have a question that popped in. Someone's asking, how about scheduling reports? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. That ties into what our roadmap is for reports. So right now, as you can see, there's a single report in this list. We'll be adding some of the existing reports to this as well, and then filling out the list with new reports. Very soon, phase 2, you'll be able to save custom reports. So I might set a bunch of parameters for showback and then save my engineering showback report, for example, so that I can select it and kick it off with one click. That's phase 2, saving custom reports. And phase 3 is scheduling reports, so that if I know I need to produce this showback report for engineering quarterly, it'll email me this report quarterly, and I only have to configure it once. So that's all coming up in the pipeline, and this and that's really when the power of this standalone reports tab really comes into play, because It'll also include not just the new reports we're going to add, but a lot of the reports that are existing in different places in the product. They're going to be consolidated here, and you'll be able to save custom versions and then schedule.
Yeah, that's a good point. That we do have reports scattered all around the UI, but you have to be in that particular area of the UI to see a lot of these reports. So they're all going to be in one spot. So you can one-stop shopping here for all the reports on this new tab.
I'll show a couple other reports that we have here in Deep Analytics currently. So 483, we added the query summary report and the orphan data report. 49, we added the showback report. Next up is the duplicates report, so stay tuned. And for now, I can go ahead and I'll show how to generate this report with it, generate some of the DA reports, so orphan data and query summary with the query. But while we're at it, I do want to show a cool feature that we also introduced in 4.9. A lot of customers have asked about the ability to select directories in their deep analytics search. This is something that we find to be even more important as we try to extend deep analytics to more line of business users and end users, because it's, we have the directory path filter where you can type in text and we search among directory paths for that text, but it's a little bit different to actually select a specific directory within a specific share or a specific set of directories rather than just a textual search for those directories. And we're allowing that here with the data store filter. This used to be the share filter, but we've renamed it because it's more powerful. We still have our share tree over here, but rather than only selecting a share, I can go ahead and select the directories inside of the share, and I can click as deep as I want and drill down. I see my breadcrumbs over here with my directories, and then I can go ahead and select some directories, and these will all be added to my search. Another potential use for this, I can not only select specific directories, but if I want to exclude specific directories, I can select the entire share and then go ahead and start excluding. So this, just by unselecting some of these, I've selected probably about 100 directories, which are within the share. And if I want to see what I've selected, I click on my selected shares and I have a hierarchical view of all the directories I've selected here. So that's something that a lot of customers have asked for. So we finally have that here. I also have this cool functionality where I can, if I'm looking at a directory, I can copy it and I can paste it into the directory path filter or paste it into a regular file browser so that it's very easy to either use both filters simultaneously, or if I want to actually go search and see the files inside of this directory in my file browser, I can do that.
So yeah, just want to interject here for a second, Jeremy. Yeah, so what we're seeing is a lot of, as SBAC and RBACs come along, we've got more end users using the product. And that's a lot of where the demand came from, because the end users are more familiar with a Windows Explorer type interface when they're looking at data like this. So this just kind of fell in with what they're used to seeing. It's just kind of a natural progression that we have going on here. Jeremy, before we move on, there's two other questions that popped in. One was, do you have a system health report or dashboard yet showing the status of all the underlying infrastructure of Komprise?
That is a great question. We have that. I think that's a great idea. We have discussed some variations of that, but and of course in system there, you can look at your observers, and your proxies, and you get some health statistics, but to have everything rolled up to one, I think that's a great idea. And it's something that we haven't done much investigation into, but it's on our list of things that we want to potentially add in the future.
Yeah. And actually, this is a good question in the sense that we'd love to get your feedback. So, for the audience out there, any reports that you're not seeing here that you think would be of value, we have a whole bunch on deck, but we're really trying to get feedback from customers on which ones to prioritize. So please just put a note in the chat here and let us know what types of reports beyond what you're seeing here that would be really useful. There's another question here, Jeremy. It actually it's not on reporting. It's see, can the user and group be tied to Active Directory so that they are able to see the shares they are permissioned on without having to go through adding local user groups? So that's going back to SBAC.
Yeah, that's another great question. Currently, you have to manually add the user and assign shares, either the specific user or you just have to add the AD group. So that makes it a little bit less manual, but you still have to go through the process of assigning shares to that group. What we want to do in the future is what we're calling automatic SBAC, where we actually query Active Directory and query all the shares, develop a mapping of who has access to what shares, and then when they log into Komprise, we only give them access to those specific shares. So that's a fairly large undertaking, but it's something we're actively investigating right now, and we're hoping to get into the product as soon as we can.
Okay, actually, then there's two other questions that kind of overlap. The query summary report, what query does it run on, and can you customize it?
Yep, that's a great question, and we'll get right into that. It's a good segue into this. So here I've selected a data store, or I've selected a group of shares, and maybe I'll select another share here. So I have my full list of shares and directories. I'll run my query, and then it's actually for the query summary report, as well as the orphan data report, both work on any query. So the query summary report is essentially giving me the same information that I'm getting here in my default DA page, but it's broken down in a way that can be easily distributed. So there's no more copying and pasting, so that people outside of Komprise can see it. So here I'll download this report. And I'll open it up. So I get my results. It's the same chart that I'm seeing at the top. Because I don't have a hover over on a PDF, I also get my breakdown as a table. And I have my same breakdown: space consumed by top shares, number of files, and an appendix with the filters that I've used. Similarly, for the orphan data report, that's taking the query that some people may note already in Deep Analytics. You can go ahead and filter by data undefined in Active Directory. So orphan data is similar to that type of query where we're looking for data that does not have a defined owner, but we also compare it to the rest of your data set. So if you really want to understand what is my orphan data footprint compared to the rest of my data set and how much money am I spending, that's the real value add here, because it gives me my full breakdown out of my entire environment, or whatever I've selected in my query. And then from there, it gives me cost model insights if I have that configured in my environment, so that I can actually see what money I can save, and by either tiering that data or confining and then deleting that data.
Hey, Jeremy, before you move on to, are you going to another report or?
Unless I could, but since we're close to the end, I think we can summarize what we've talked about.
Well, before you go there, we have one other question. And it is, do you have a method to see/review files retrieved by clients using the symlinks? We can see how much data is moved to cloud storage by Komprise, but how much is pulled back. I know data retrieval under shares is available for large retrievals, bulk recalls, but I'm interested in a daily workload of just single clients using the symlinks.
That's something that we want to do with these reports. It's on our short list. It's essentially a tiered data access report. It's a use case we've heard from several customers, so that is high on our priorities. So yeah, that's another great bit of feedback. Thank you.
I agree. That is a high one. Okay, that's it for questions for now. But yeah, again, I encourage the audience. Yeah, this is great. Any other questions or any other reports that you see value in? Please let us know. Very helpful.
All right. So just to recap, orphan data report, reports on data not currently owned by current employees, provides costs, actionable steps to reduce them, and top shares for IT to go after. Similarly, query summary report summarizes the customer query, essentially gives you a format to present to stakeholders so that you don't have to copy and paste, screenshot and paste, or try to extrapolate this data by other means. And then just a preview of what's coming. Potential duplicates I mentioned is coming next. We're also going to put in a lot of reports that are already available in other parts of the product. And this will, the value of this will really be come into play when you can save these reports as custom reports and then generate them on a periodic basis by our scheduling feature. And of course, if there's something you see here that you're very interested in, or you don't see here, that like tiered data access, for example, or a system health report that you would like to get into the product, please give us that feedback.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Before we wrap up here, a few housekeeping items. Again, this is being recorded like all our webinar sessions. You get the links right there on this page here. Also, you can always go to the Freshdesk Knowledge Base Library. The home page will have links pointing to this as well. And don't hesitate to reach out to your CSM. They can always point you if you forget about this. Also, before you take off, if there's any other topics you'd like to do a webinar like this on, please send it into the chat. It's very helpful. And what we do not have on this slide, we just figured it out this morning, is our next session. So the next session is going to be Thursday, June 8th, same time, same station. And we're going to be, actually, we're kind of revisiting a topic. It's basically based on performance best practices, but also a process and steps to troubleshoot performance issues if you run across them. It's a hot topic, and we're going to have a whole session dedicated to that. So again, so in if you can't think of any topics off the top of your head, but you run across something later, again, don't hesitate. You get this alias here, customer success at Komprise.com, or just your CSM. But let us know any other topics you'd like us to talk about, or reports, or anything for that matter. We're all ears. We'd love to hear back from you guys. All right, with that, we'll conclude the session. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.